a quick 15-minute presentation of the representation of Hawaii in Hollywood and cyberspace. So to explain this, we'll first go about telling what symbolic technique is, which most of the groups already did, but then we want to set it in our particular context. So symbolic technique basically comes from marketing. So marketing, how it started was when you're advertising a product to a person, you should show it explicitly to his face. So after that it became a little subtle, and the subtlety is what is called symbolic technique right now. So if you say something, the symbol means something of a larger part. So say for example, the CVs that we prepare right now for our placement process, it basically symbolizes what you are. So it tells the company what you really are. That is what a product does as well. When you get a product and it merges into your lifestyle, you're saying to the other people, you're conveying a certain message that this is what you actually are and this is what it symbolizes. So this is what symbolic technique essentially is. So when you're saying a symbol, say for example the symbol of peace as white color or something like that, or what you're saying is, which is what is said already, it basically is part of a larger system. So a symbol is essentially a deferral sign, right? So it becomes a sign at a later point of time. But what a symbol does is it creates a function or an informal sign, as you said here. And there are a lot of cultural consequences for this. So in a symbolic technique, there are like positive and negative connotations. A symbol can be said in a positive way or in a negative way, as in the examples that we'll see at a later point in time. So the case in hand is Hawaii, the representation of Hawaii in Hollywood and cyberspace. But it also is about how it essentially began. So this was about Captain James Cook when he went off to explore islands. He was essentially an adventurer. So to talk about this, the symbolic technique that we've used is, that is being used here is the rhetoric of possession. So to go on with this, we'll have to understand the meaning of rhetoric first off. So to put it in simple words, as opposed to what is said over there, rhetoric is essentially an art of communicating what you want to say to a particular audience in a particular situation to convince or inform them as to what the message really is. So that is what is being done here. If you see the picture over here, I wish I could gone to the picture, but this is what it is, and it's given the text as well. So this is Captain James Cook, and those are the Hawaiians, and this is Captain James Cook's crew, right? So they were holding guns in their arms, shooting at random Hawaiian people at the tribe, and they were holding weapons as well, pointed at Captain James Cook. And if you notice this, he has this unarmed arm over there, stopping Cook's crew to stop firing. Asking them to stop firing, and he has a weapon in the other hand. So what is being said here by the painter is that, before that I should probably say that Captain Cook was murdered by the Hawaiian tribe. So that having been said, so this particular picture says that Captain James Cook is a victim of his own humanity. So he was trying to be good to the Hawaiian people, but they killed him eventually anyway. But what essentially happened was, the Hawaiian people, Captain James Cook's crew captured the Hawaiian tribe chief, and then so Captain Cook held one of the Hawaiian chiefs as hostage, and he threatened to kill him, but then he got killed by the Hawaiian tribe anyway. So the picture here is what the Euro-American military did was they sent off adventurers to certain part of the islands in the Pacific to explore them and evaluate them, see if they're like hostile, if they're like habitable and all that, and then come back and give them an evaluative report as to how the people really are. So what the adventurers did was they went off to these islands, gave the people gifts and sugar talked them, and then like practically they were like nice to them and all that. And what happened later was the England military came and like colonized. This is what essentially happened. So that means the rhetoric of that is what is meant by the rhetoric of possession over here. So in order to possess, they convey some other message saying that they're actually nice people, we have come here to be friends with you and all that, and then the English military comes and takes you over. This is the message that we are trying to convey by rhetoric of possession. This is basically an example of misrepresentation as well. Symbolism of the present. So what has happened after the Cook incident is Captain Cook basically wrote things in his journal saying that he is basically a very nice guy and stuff like that. So what happened is, when the Western movies started taking Hawaii in their movies, I mean Hollywood, they practically stereotyped Hawaiians as women as sex objects and men as people who do nothing, but then they just go around fishing and surfing in the ocean and then living their life. Right? So this implanted in the mindset of people who were watching all over the world, they thought Hawaii as the place for travel. If you go to Hawaii, you will basically see women dancing around in like coconut bras and then like wearing skirts made of grass. That's what it essentially was the idea portrayed by Hollywood to the public. So we'll show a short video to explain what it really meant. This is basically
I can't believe you are pregnant.
That's how they're basically portrayed in all movies. Stereotype. So let's come to the future. After having said what Hawaiian people are and how they are represented in the movies, we come to the era of cyberspace wherein how let's go on to the presentation. So yeah, after having said how they are represented in Hollywood, we go to the cyberspace era wherein how they can represent themselves in the age of the internet, how they can create web pages for themselves, how they can actually portray what they really are, what their culture is. So we come to the point of polyrhetoric, which is the technique being used here. After having defined what rhetoric is, I want to talk about what monorhetoric is in order to talk about what polyrhetoric is. So monorhetoric essentially means that the art of communication is rhetoric. Monorhetoric is when your idea is essentially coming from one element, or what you are implying to say means just one thing. It goes both ways. Polyrhetoric means when your idea is coming from a lot of elements. It's not just one element that gives you your idea. Say for example, the Avatar movie wherein the people in the tribe were actually sitting and like chanting and all that. So their values, their life is embedded in the relationships with other people, in the relationship with their ancestors, of the future generations, of the huge tree that's standing in the middle of the island, and whatnot. So, and we have to talk about multivocal. Multivocal means there's like different interpretations of the same thing, like different meanings to the same word when put in different contexts. And open-endedness, discussed already in previous Euro-American history. What happened was, so if there's a certain text printed, so they only see it as how to read the text. It was printed in black and white and it was not in like colored, and there wasn't like graphic text written over it. So they basically said how to look at the text look through the text and not just look at it. So that is why there was like no graphic representation and all that. But in the age of internet, they're saying you shouldn't only be like looking at the text, but you should be looking through the text as well. And there's this issue of invisibilities wherein we've come to a certain point where what is true and what is not true over the internet. That is what is being said here. And then rhizomatics. Rhizomes in biology means, say for example, there's ginger, and you have a lot of nodes in that, and you have a lot of roots coming out of a lot of places. So meaning that essentially what is said in polyrhetoric is that you have a lot of roots, and your idea is based on a lot of elements, or your idea when put in different contexts would mean different things. That is what rhizomatics means. So after having been said this, about the symbolic technique, we go on to talk about the different contexts, two different contexts, which is supposed to be discussed by Roxy.
So I'll take you to the Manchurian context. The first of which deals with the concept of or the symbolic technique of stereotyping. So I'll talk about three different instances where this technique is used. So in the first one, during the World War II, the American government essentially created a propaganda, an anti-Japanese propaganda. So you can see the picture over there where a Japanese man is trying to threaten an American white woman. So this particular stereotype of a Japanese man attacking an American white woman is used to fund their own agenda of the world war. So they fund a war using this because they play on the perception of a woman's body being her tribe's home or country. So this is representative of Japanese coming in America as a country. So you can see they talk about investing 10% in war bonds, so they're appealing to the general public, general populace to invest in war bonds because Japan is attacking America. So the next instance is about how Japanese technology is portrayed as evil in movies. So this is with reference to our initial presentation that we made on dialectics, where we talked about the Nakatomi Corporation being portrayed as evil in the movie Die Hard. The third one is, of course, the overachieving Asian. And here comes the concept of bamboo ceiling. So what is bamboo ceiling? Bamboo ceiling is the concept of an individual or cultural or an organization factor affecting the career success of an Asian American in an American corporate company. So how does it relate to the overachieving Asians? So Asians are stereotypically considered to be hardworking, intelligent, studious, politically inactive. So these stereotypical characteristics are in a sense detrimental to their own progress. So if we represent the same thing using these two names, you can see how a Japanese man is talking about what's your blood type, frisbee, so failure answer your means and the very shortest horror stories, of course, for getting the person in an exam. So this is about the overachieving Asian. Next, the second managerial context is, of course, the erstwhile Satyam. So Satyam over the years had won several awards. Even before coming to the awards, it was an example of a rare entrepreneurial success in India. And it was seen as being representative of India's clout in the international services industry. So Satyam had won several awards for their innovation, governance, and corporate accountability. In fact, in the year 2007, Mr. Ramalinga Raju, the chairman of Satyam, had won the Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year Award. And they had won the Golden Peacock Award for Global Excellence in Corporate Governance in the year 2008. Post which, the CFO of the firm, in a press conference, stated that this particular award recognizes their commitment to involve all stakeholders, be open to the public, and also complying with increasingly strict regulatory environments. 5 months later, the Satyam scandal broke up. So there was this $2.5 billion corporate scandal of accounting fraud. So this, in a sense, is a representative of the misrepresentation symbolic technique that Sridhar already talked about. So now I'm going to talk about the new communication technique that we have put forth.
So far, we've talked about symbolism and using 3 different kinds of techniques, which is polyrhetoric, then there's misrepresentation, and the very first one, which was stereotyping. Now, all these 3 fit into the idea that there is there is a word or there is some sort of imagery associated with the technique that translates, that lends itself to some sort of a cultural context. And building on that, we have our 4th technique, which we have called hula hoism. Now, hula hoo is a Hawaiian word, and it translates to literally to revive, restore, or resurrect. And why we thought this would make sense given our current context was that the way Hawaii has been represented over the ages, through different media such as text, such as audio interviews, through the television, through movies, has taken away a lot of what the Hawaiian culture, what the Hawaiian people actually were about. So all those techniques that we talked about, misrepresentation, that talked about stereotyping, those gave new meanings to the Hawaiian culture which actually were not part of the original meaning. And this in a sense has further taken the new generation of Hawaii away from what their actual culture is. So, while it is still understandable how people who've never been exposed to the Hawaiian culture will end up thinking that it is all about dancing on the beach, about hulas and about generally surfing and lacing about. What it does is takes away a lot from future Hawaiian generations in terms of what their culture is actually about. So while the stereotyping might end up portraying Hawaiians as lazy people, as people who don't really care about life and are very, very laid back, what it ends up doing is it hides those aspects which show that the Hawaiian culture actually does not place so much emphasis on the individual. It places more emphasis on performance as a group, on helping each other out. And we can clearly see how this would be detrimental in something like a school. In Hawaiian schools, the focus would more be about helping each other and performing as a group. But if the same student is, let's say, put in any of the schools in any of the other 49 states of the US, his or her performance will automatically suffer, and this would be because they don't understand the unique culture that the person comes from. So our technique essentially, if we go back to the basic definition that Sridhar talked about in the beginning, it is a symbol, so one starting with our own language. It is a symbol which represents a larger truth or picture, which is the need for Hawaiian culture to be to not be misrepresented, to not be reinterpreted, but for the original culture to be brought back to the forefront and to be advertised more. And secondly, it has representation of cultural consequences. I took an example of how school kids might perform differently in Hawaii as compared to other states. Bringing this context to a place where it has already been used is, we think, the handicraft industry in India. Now, while the handicraft industry was something that was very normal, very accepted, let's say prior to independence or the first 5-10 years after independence, with the increase in industrialization, with the increase in factories which could have, which could produce mass products, there was a decreased focus, there was a loss of what the handicraft industry is all about. It didn't matter whether an actual artisan was producing it or whether it was being produced using machines, which would produce 10,000 things of the exact same pattern. So in that sense, there was a loss of identity of what these handicrafts meant. And this is where we think that hulahoism has actually already happened. After the first 10-15 years after independence, there was a focus to go back to what a handicraft actually meant. It was not to be commoditized, it was something that had a distinct identity depending on which artisan produced it. And in this sense, we think that the communication that was used, whether it was through the National Crafts Council or it was the focus at the panchayat level to support these artisans, we think that communication strategy was already used here in the handicraft industry. So this is all we have to wrap it up. We've talked about what symbolism was in our context, what we felt the definition was. We've talked about the 3 strategies of symbolism that we came across in the 3 readings that were given to us. We looked at 2 managerial contexts. One was how the stereotyping of Japanese or Asian people happen and how that impacts their performance in corporate cultures. We looked at the Satyam case and how they misrepresented their own performance. They portrayed a different face to the public, which was in conflict to what was happening in the background. And finally, looking at the Hawaii case, we picked up a 4th communication technique, hulahoism, which we think is very relevant as in the internet age they look forward to re-establish their culture and how they can